The Human Optimization Podcast is proudly brought to you by Vicon Supplements, where quality meets sustainability. Vicon's all-natural supplements are handcrafted and sustainably produced in Canada, bringing you products that nourish both your well-being and our planet. Visit viconsupplements.com today and be a part of a greener, healthier future.
Are you ready to embark on a journey to the best version of you? Join me, Lisa Pitel-Killah, as I dive deep into the world of hair tissue mineral analysis and functional medicine with fellow experts, and guide you on the path of unlocking your full potential. As a multi-time kettlebell sport world champion, I'm on a mission to reach high-performance professionals from around the world to help you minimize tiring symptoms, maximize health, and gain unstoppable energy. This is the Human Optimization Podcast. Welcome, everybody, to a brand new episode of the Human Optimization Podcast. I have a guest who's been with us before, is a self-proclaimed science geek with a passion for human health. This is Nat Niddam. She's a certified holistic nutritionist, an epigenetic coach, and a member of the first graduating class of the Human Potential Training Institute. In her teens, she fought with ongoing health and digestive issues, learned many years later to tap into her body's own healing and repair mechanisms, and now wants to share her knowledge to help others take control of their health around the world. Nat's unique methods blends an array of human performance fields like neuroscience, personalized nutrition, nutraceuticals, biohacking, ancestral health, and resilience training. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you so much.
We have such an amazing, so first off, because, people listening, people watching may not, I'd be surprised, but may not know who you are, what you do. Give us a little background about how you got here.
So how did I get here? Well, I guess it all started when I started my undergraduate studies at McGill University. Back in the day, were in human physiology.
Mm-hmm.
I was always, like I said, I was always kind of a little bit of a nerdy kid. I read National Geographic cover to cover. But I would say that I was one of those people that was always really healthy, only always had like kind of weird, I had like, I know now, and like in my teens, I had like major candida issues. I had major digestive issues growing up. I later learned, as a baby that was fed with formula, wasn't breastfed, C-section baby, I was predisposed to a lot of these, the candida was not an accident. It was multiple courses of antibiotics as a child. I remember one summer when I was 10, I got strep throat, not once, not twice, not 3 times, 4 times. So I basically,
my gosh,
summer having strep, going on antibiotics, getting strep, going like literally back and forth and back and forth. I spent my whole summer. So, you can imagine that my microbiome, which was already not stellar to begin with, just got like demoed, right? Yeah. And I think that set me up for a lot of the stuff that I dealt with, as a young adult.
Mm-hmm.
But, I kind of fell out of the whole science field. I fell into advertising sales of all things.
Mm-hmm.
But I was always a fitness instructor. So I always kind of kept a hand in this whole space, right?
Yeah.
And then, being in ad sales, I remember waking up one morning I remember waking up a lot of mornings thinking, they're not paying me enough to do this. Like, this isn't working for me. I'm good at what I do, but I don't love what I do.
Yeah.
And at the time I was like, kind of geeking out on, at the time, like Dave Asprey stuff and Wolf with the paleo diet and, and Chris Kresser with the personalized paleo diet. And I was like, whoa, this is so cool. And I'm yapping to my chiropractor about it. And unbeknownst to me, he's downloading what I'm telling him to his patient. And he comes in one day and he goes, you know what, Nat? I've been telling this one patient of mine about and he's been doing everything you've been telling me about that I've been telling him. He's dropped 10 pounds. His inflammation's way down. You should be getting paid to do this. And it's literally like a light went off in my head. And I'm like, yeah, I should be getting paid to do this. And I back to school where you're teaching now, actually, at the Institute of Holistic Nutrition. And I thank God at the time it was in class full time, because I don't do that well with the, I don't know how you do
online.
it.
Oh, yes.
drift away, you know. Anyway, so getting my bum in a seat every day for the better part of a year and a half, and like charging through that curriculum, which is pretty intense.
Mm-hmm.
So then I became a holistic nutritionist. Then I got into the human potential thing. Then I got really fascinated with epigenetics. And then I came across these things called peptides. And that's the rabbit hole I fell down, and I'm still lost somewhere in the depths. And that's, you know, so that's kind of where I'm in this space of really, like, I'm fascinated with peptides and bioregulators, but I'm really in this space of longevity, mostly because of age. I mean, you know, you hit a certain age and you start thinking, okay, well, how's the rest of this going to play out, right?
Right.
And
Yep.
you know, when you've been in this world, so I've now been in this space for well over 10 years, you know that you have a lot of control over how this all plays out.
Yep.
And that's my passion. So I started the podcast 4 years ago now. It used to be called Biohacking Superhuman Performance. I got really tired of saying that. So now it's Longevity with Nat Niddam, which actually pulls back a little bit to more of a 10,000-foot view and really encompasses all of those pieces of the puzzle that we want to, that, you know, that we can tap into, that can help us to live out our days better and younger than ever before.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it is, I want to say, you know, maybe 5, 6 years ago, it was kind of like the new norm. It's like, oh, that's okay. 50 is the new 40, right? Everything's like 10 years. And it's true. It really is true. And I remember, you know, just thinking, oh my gosh, 50. And, you know, now that you're here, it's like, oh, wow, this isn't what I thought it was going to be when I was 10.
No. And
right.
I also think that it's not what it was for your grandparents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Their expectation, number one, is not that they were going to live as long.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, you know, it's that whole what you speak, you will become thing, where people got old sooner because they expected to be old sooner.
Right.
And, you know, I think one of the gifts or whatever of the baby boomer generation is this kind of relentless hanging on to their youth, which I'm the last month of the last year of the baby boomers. I'm December of 1963. I'm the last one.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, they're going to have to pry our youth out of our dying hands. I'm not going down without a fight. And not only that, I want to look good, and I want to have my act together, and I want to be hiking mountains and doing cool stuff. And I will remember my name, even when I'm 20.
I love it. Oh my goodness. Okay. So let's dive into peptides, because people love, a lot of people don't know about them, which kind of blows my mind. But let's start simple with peptides, and then let's talk about bioregulators too.
For sure. So peptides really is a peptide, and many of the people listening who may not be in this space may be thinking, oh yeah, I take collagen peptides. I drink that stuff all the time. Really good for nails. And peptides are a little bit like collagen peptides in the sense that they're proteins. But the most famous peptide you will have heard of, most people will have heard of, is insulin, right? And so what a peptide really is a small protein. It's 50 amino acids or fewer. Amino acids are the building blocks of protein. So just so we're not speaking Greek to people, again, who are new to the space.
Yeah.
And what they essentially are they're native to the body. They exist in our body. Like, I think to date, researchers have identified over 7,000 peptides native to the body. But when they're reintroduced, or fragments of them are reintroduced to the body, they act as very specific signaling molecules. Right. And so they will bind to receptors on cells and initiate cascades of events that could trigger either different performance by your immune system. It can do things like healing of tissues. It can trigger all kinds of different processes that will lead to different types of outcomes. And so it's a fascinating area of science, because what it does is, it's not like a drug that's blocking a pathway or pushing a pathway. It's something that the body knows that is essentially like kind of coming up to, you know, those little domino things, and it's just tipping over that one domino and getting the chain going again.
Yeah.
Right. So and it doesn't disable the body's systems from the checks and balances we have built in necessarily to click in when they need to. So it's very fascinating. It's obviously still an area that probably needs a lot more research.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of research happening around peptides. There's been a lot of drama over the last number of months.
Yeah.
The FDA in the States has taken a very rigid stance when it comes to peptides, basically reclassifying most of the well-known and most used peptides in functional medicine as
Mm-hmm.
class compounds. And so basically they're saying, we don't know that these things are safe, so we don't even want compounding pharmacies to be making them.
Wow.
It's been a real blow to the integrative and functional medicine space, because there are people that are being helped by these things that, first of all, other things don't help them. And secondly, it does it in a way with no side effects. And, and they've taken these really impressive compounds out of the hands of the very people that should have them, which is the doctors, right? So what's happened is you now have this whole sub movement of people moving into the space of sourcing them wherever they can. There are some really good places to source, but honestly, it's a bit of a nightmare, because the whole world, it seems, is opening up a peptide lab, a research lab, and they're popping up like mushrooms. And you don't really have to do your homework, because there's people who sweepingly will say, if you're not getting it from a compound pharmacy, you can't trust it. I wouldn't go that far, but you have to do your due diligence, because there are plenty of these guys just bringing stuff in from overseas. They're not testing them properly. They're not, you don't know what you're getting, and at the end of the day, these are powerful. Like these can move the needle in really significant ways. And you don't want to be introducing something into your body that can be so powerful that might be contaminated with, something else.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's become more of the wild, wild west out there. The good news is that not included in that roundup, if you will, it seems, was the oral versions of peptides. And so the bad news is that most of them are not bioavailable orally, because they're proteins, they do get digested. But there are a couple of big players that are bioavailable orally. And the main one of those is a peptide called BPC-157, which stands for protective compound 157. And that peptide can be administered either by subcutaneous injection, which is now off the table, according, if you're rules, it's off the table, but it can be compounded by compounding pharmacies as eye drops, really powerful for healing cornea. It can be used topically to heal wounds and to heal burns. It can be taken orally. It's very powerful for healing the GI tract, which is where this protein originates from. Is right. It's a fragment of a protein that is naturally produced in our gastric juice. But it's also a very powerful healing peptide for the whole body. So for soft tissue injuries, for even for bone, it's protective for the brain. It's almost like BPC, body protective compound. It's good for the kidneys. It's good for the pancreas. It's got all these crazy wide-ranging effects, to the point where people are like, well, it's too good to be true. But if you think about it, if all it is a signaling molecule signaling the body to heal, plus it has the ability to stimulate angiogenesis, so it can help to bring blood flow to an area of injury. So when we're trying to, let's say, heal an Achilles tendon or places that don't get a great blood flow, it can be really helpful there. You're talking about a very, very powerful tool in the toolkit. So when it's taken orally, back in the day when we had access to it also as subcutaneous injection easily, I would have said for musculoskeletal injuries, you're always better doing an injection. Injections, but for gut healing, you're almost always going to do better with it orally. But now I would say orally is still much better, much more effective for the gut. But I've got plenty of people will come around and say, wow, I was taking that BPC for my gut and my sore knee stopped hurting, or my back doesn't ache as bad anymore. Or
Yeah.
so it is pleiotropic enough that it can reach other places. It's just a question of dosing, timing, and situation, right?
Yeah.
It sounds pretty magical. It's not magical. I will also say, and I didn't used to talk about this as much, but I've now seen enough to say that there are some people, and it's not a large number of people, but there is a not insignificant number of people who respond very poorly to BPC. Now,
Oh,
on
really? Huh.
it's GABAergic, serotonergic, and dopaminergic. So it balances those systems in the brain. And for a certain subset of the population, it does the dead opposite. And so you have people who will suffer from crazy anxiety, from anger, from mood dysregulation, from detachment. So I suspect, nobody really knows for sure because nobody's really studied it. I
Yeah.
suspect that there's a common theme here. They must have something else going on, or a certain chemical balance in their brain, whatever the case may be. So what I would suggest to people, if you were to try something like this, like a BPC, even oral, monitor how you're feeling, because if you start feeling like serious anxiety, stuff like that, you want to stop right away. You do
Yeah.
not want this going,
Yeah.
because it is a thing. And I've definitely anecdotally heard of people who struggled for,
Mm.
they didn't realize what was happening. They kept going,
Right.
and then they got left with an issue. So
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah. I mean, I've used the BPC 157 for GI health. I've also used it with my dog.
yeah,
Amazing, right? Yeah, lots of great results there. So, and lots of sources. We were talking about that earlier, just with regards to sources and some of the mixes. Do you want to touch on some of those? Because there were some pretty cool ones that you were mentioning.
there's some, I mean, so there people are getting, I mean, the peptide thing is like, it's catnip, right? Because they're so powerful. And, in a world in a sea of supplements, where so often people take supplements and they don't really know why they're taking them. They don't feel different. They just
Yep.
take them, heard it was good for them.
Hmm.
These are things that can move the needle, right? So with BPC 157, we have a couple of suppliers that are really, they're just so over the top diligent on this stuff. So one
Yep.
of them is actually in Australia. Now, if you think Canada's bad with supplements, Australia, just BPC 157, so illegal that if he sells it to someone in Australia, he will go to jail,
Oh my goodness.
right?
Wow.
So he literally cannot sell it in his own country anymore. And so, but it's a company called Level Up Health.
Hmm.
And this is one of the, I'm going to talk about two companies that share this kind of creed. It's Level Up Health and Health Jevity. And these are
Hmm.
two guys who will spare no expense when they're putting together a formula.
Hmm.
And they don't care if it cuts into their margins, or they'll spare no cost. They will build the most incredible formula at the therapeutic dosing. Like, they stop at nothing.
Yeah.
And so Kyle has a formula called Ultimate GI Repair,
Mm.
which has BPC 157. It has another peptide called lorazepatide, and lorazepatide actually is a peptide that seals the tight junctions in the gut. It has another peptide called KPV, which is very powerful anti-inflammatory.
Hmm.
The newest version of the formula, he's even added a peptide called GKCU. So GHK we'll talk about in a minute,
Hmm.
but GHKCU is a peptide that influences over 4,000 genes on our genome, and it resets them to a more youthful setting. Like,
Hmm.
it's bonkos. It was also caught up in the sweet. But it is very powerful for wound healing, tissue healing. It's incredible for skin. It can be
Yep.
used topically. Like, it's an amazing. So Level Up Health has the Ultimate GI Repair, and he also has just a straight BPC 157 Regenerate, which is an oral version of BPC. And he's also using a form of BPC that breaks down more slowly in the gut, which is
Nice.
interesting because, as a rule, BPC gets a buy,
Yep.
right? For whatever reason, doesn't get it. It is still bioavailable orally, even though
Hmm.
it's 15 amino acids. So technically it's too long, but there's something about this arrangement and the way this protein's built
Hmm.
that it gets to survive the gut. So
Mm.
as a result, with these guys, when they use this form of BPC 157, even orally, it can actually be very effective for things like colitis and Crohn's. There are studies on Crohn's colitis. And in the lab animals, I believe that what they do is they put it in the drinking water, or they will infuse, they'll inject them with it.
Yeah.
So it's really, so he has the Regenerate and that one, and then Health Jevity, which is another provider. Now they're a little bit tougher. They sell direct to consumer. I'm not sure they'll ship to Canada. Level Up will. Health Jevity might. And he has a BPC 157 with PEA. Now PPA is phenylethyl. It's got a really long name, but bottom line, it's a very powerful anti-inflammatory. And so the combination of those two, even though BPC on its own is anti-inflammatory and analgesic properties, the PEA just adds a whole other layer to that. And then he also has, I believe, just a straight BPC on its own. Plus, he has another formula he just came out with. There's another repair peptide called Thymus Beta 4 that very often back in the day, people, if they had an injury, would take BPC 157, they would take Thymus Beta 4, and then they might add CJC 1295 and ipamorelin. So those last two, the CJC 1295 and ipamorelin, are growth hormone secretagogues. The problem with those is they really need to be injected subcutaneously. So they're kind of off the table at this stage of the game. Thymus Beta 4 is 43 amino acids. It's a big honkin' peptide. It got swept up in the FDA sweep. But here's what people figured out, is that this big honkin' 43 amino acid peptide actually has I think it's 7 different docking sites on this peptide. And so if you break them off, you now have fragments that are maybe 3 or 4 amino acids long. Now they're available if you take them orally, and they'll be very specific in their actions. And so Longevity has isolated a few of them and put them into a formula that is really good for both immune and repair.
Amazing. Wow.
So that's his newest entry into the market. Then we have another, there's another company called, hang on. This is a really cool company also. These guys, they have a supplement called Rapid Rebound, and it's BPC 157 with AOD 9604, which is, it's not a growth hormone secretagogue per se, but it is a kind of like a repair compound. And it's also got PEA in it. I forgot. So it's got PEA, BPC, and the AOD 9604. This is a company called, they do a very good job of putting their company name on here. If you go to my website, natniddam.com, and you go to Nat Recommends, there's a page with listings of all the oral peptides. And so you'll find it there. I want to say it's not Longevity Labs. I forget the name of I don't know why it's Amy Killen's company. Anyway, so there's this too. So we're and then the other one that Level Up has is GHK copper as an oral peptide. So we can talk about GHK copper a little bit if you want.
Yeah, let's do that. Because isn't there, you talked about topical, but there's a cream, right?
GKCU was discovered in 1973 or isolated in 1973 by a doctor in the States by the name of Dr. Lauren Pickart. And he noticed that, in his studies, he noticed that GHK, it's naturally occurring in our blood, and our levels are super high when we're young, and they plummet as we age. So as soon as we see this, we're like, what's that? How come we don't have it? What does it do? Right. So what's that? And what it does is it flips your genes on to a youth. It is really important for repair. It to prevent scarring because it helps the fibers to realign properly when you have a wound. It upregulates the production of collagen and elastin. Pretty.
Yes.
And it's also it actually, every time I go digging in the literature about GHK, I find something new that I didn't know the day before.
Wow.
It's nutty. It's got anxiolytic properties. It's got properties for the gut, which is why Kyle added it into his gut formula. But what's amazing about this one is it's also very powerful topically. And so Lauren Pickart developed a line of of serums and creams. I would say there's, his stuff is great. He's not as attentive necessarily to the other stuff in his products.
Right.
So the newer company called Vitali, Vitali Skincare, and they have a GHK copper serum. And so it's GHK copper serum because it's bright, bright blue.
Oh,
right?
wow.
This is the copper. It's that cobalt blue.
Mm-hmm.
So you can use, so they have a serum, they have skin creams, and they have a really beautiful stack of ingredients in there. They've got a brown algae that helps with reactive oxygen species. They've
Nice.
got squalene, which is a very powerful hydrator. So it's just really, really powerful formula. The one thing I would say is that it's even more powerful if you do something like microneedling with it.
Ah, okay. That makes sense. Yeah.
Because even Dr. Pickard, if you were to call his site, they would go through they want you to exfoliate before they want to disrupt that skin barrier.
Yep.
You apply the product so that it gets in.
Yep.
But I would say like any of these home microneedling pens, or I've used the Cure Skincare little disposable jars with the little needle top.
Yep.
The problem I have with those is that it's really hard to get the product to start flowing through those stupid little needles.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you're on your first pass on your face and you're still not getting product out. Last time I just kind of like,
like, I'm done. That's over. Moving on.
Well, then I started pouring it up in my hand and putting it on my face and poking my face. Like, this is not.
Oh my goodness.
But that's GHK copper. I think it's fascinating, and I believe what's going on is that the pharmaceutical companies are stepping in. I think they're getting their hands on these things, and they're going to see them come back, but as either drugs or products or something.
Yeah, exactly. And so, what about? So we were talking earlier about peptides, and like, can anybody get them anywhere now?
It depends how resourceful you are. I mean, it's, there's definitely some good research labs around who are still going, but I don't even want to name them on a podcast.
No.
Because I feel like, it's become a bit of a cat and mouse game out there.
Yeah, makes sense.
It's unfortunate because it shouldn't be that way. And I'm hopeful that over time things will change, but I'm not.
Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen tomorrow?
Yeah. So I just think that, at this stage of the game, it depends on how resourceful and how, I don't know what the right word is, but kind of like how much of a biohacker the person is. And I love the term biohacking. I just kicked it off my podcast, right? But it is, the people who were the biggest in this space, the first entry into the biohacking space really are bodybuilders.
Yep.
And these people that have been throwing all these, I mean, you find a bodybuilder who's been around long enough and they're like, oh my God, we were using BPC 157 20 years ago.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, and not only did the FDA take exception to it, but BPC 157 can protect the brain from a TBI. So of course it would be banned by WADA. It would not be. It would not be allowed in the NFL.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that was about three years ago, wasn't it? That it was added to the WADA list around 20. I feel like it was like 2019, 2020. It changed, something like that. Yeah.
BPC 157 and Thymus Beta 4, both of them ended up on that list. Both of them are neuroprotective. Both of them can heal the brain. Like it's all the, and it's, it's not like it's a steroid that overcharges the system. It's actually something that just helps the body to recover more quickly and heal. So it's really, for someone like me who doesn't want to believe in conspiracies, it's confusing.
Yep. That's true. That's a fair statement, right?
It doesn't seem to me like all the powers that be are in good faith here. And I think it's really unfortunate. Now, the good news is there's people are hard at work looking for alternatives. I know that I haven't even actually gone into the course material yet, but A4M did a whole they did a whole module on alternative other peptides. So it's going to be like this little cat and mouse thing, right?
Yeah.
People find new peptides and then it takes the FDA a couple of years to catch up, and they're like, no, you can't use those either. And then they'll find some more, and then it'll be like, it's
Yeah.
going to be this race. But in the meantime, we have a whole other category called bioregulator peptides that actually are coming into the sphere as oral nutritional supplements, which is interesting because they were originally isolated from animal tissues and organs by a scientist and a doctor in Russia by the name of Vladimir Kavinson. And so they are bioavailable orally because they are tiny. They're 2 to 4 amino acids long. And they, for your enzymes to chop up proteins, it needs specific sites to target, right? And those 2 to 4 amino acid chains have the sites exactly on the 2 to 4 amino acid. If it's a 2 amino acid peptide, the cleavage sites are on either side.
Yep.
If it's 3 or if it's 4, so they're very specific, so they're preserved. And then there's these cell channel transporters that are specific and will take them into the cell. And what they do is they are able to get into the nucleus of the cell where your DNA is, and they're able to bind to the DNA. And by binding to the DNA, they're able to upregulate the production of proteins. So what that essentially means is that they trigger rejuvenation and renewal at a cellular level of tissues, glands, and organs in the body.
Yeah.
And there's a gentleman, Bill Lawrence, who was working with Professor Kavinson until earlier this year when Professor Kavinson sadly passed away.
He just recently not passed away, yeah.
But he actually has a new theory about what exactly is going on with the DNA, which I'm actually having him on the podcast soon. So
amazing.
We'll all find out about it in the podcast kind of thing. Whole repair mechanisms around DNA. And so I think that these bioregulators are really interesting. Now, the unfortunate thing is that Epitel-Killah, which is the pineal gland bioregulator, somehow ended up on that list of the FDA. I don't know how they found out about it. I don't know why it, of all things, maybe because it restores circadian rhythm, it normalizes melatonin production, it's anti-tumor, it elongates telomeres. Maybe that's why. I don't know. I'm going to be walking down the street with a bullseye on my back. But they took they basically said Epitel-Killah, they scooped it up.
Yep.
What they didn't do is name any of the oral bioregulators.
Got it.
Epitel-Killah is the injectable form of the pineal gland bioregulator, but the good news is that we have other forms. We have oral supplements that are classified as nutritional supplements. And so they can be purchased. And so there's 21 of them. Each one, so you have, and just to rattle off a few to give people an idea of how we've got a pineal gland, we have central nervous system, we have the thyroid gland, we have the thymus, we have the adrenals, the pancreas, the liver, the stomach, the muscles, the bone marrow, the kidneys, the heart, the blood vessels. So all of these, you can basically hear, this is all the major systems and organs, the ovaries, testes, the prostate bioregulator. I have seen that bioregulator fix more issues for men who had to get up and pee in the night than anything else.
Wow.
It is the one like most of the time people say to me, well, how long before I feel it? And I'm like, most of the time you're not going to feel it. But in that case, that bioregulator, as long as a man just, doesn't have any kind of elevated PSA and stuff like that, I'm blown away. Like I've seen it now over and over and over again, like anecdotally, I just had a guy say it to me yesterday. He's like, Nat, I just can't even get over that one peptide, that regulator. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So it's about, And what the bioregulators really look to do, what the bioregulators really are doing is they're restoring homeostasis, balance to the system. So they're not going to turn you into a superhuman, right? They want to balance things out. And the example that I use the most often, because people really get it, is if we look at the thyroid gland. So people can be either hyper or hypothyroid.
Yep.
And whether you're hyper or hypothyroid is going to have everything to do with the types of medications that you're going to be given.
Right.
Well, the bioregulator can be given to both those populations of people because all it's looking to do is restore balance.
Yeah.
So it's pretty amazing. I think that, there's a lot of research that's been done on the bioregulators in Russia by Kevin and his teams of scientists that work with him. There's like over 30 years of research, but of course the Russians don't love to play nicely with the West, and the West doesn't love to play nicely with the Russians. So everybody's like running around trying to find the information.
Of course.
But it's all very interesting. In my membership community this year, we're doing a program called the Year of Bioregulators, where basically people are signing up and we're basically putting them through a whole year program of cycling through all the bioregulators to see, will it have an impact on their biological age? Will it have an impact on any of their labs? Like if it's someone who's insulin resistant and has issues with their pancreas, might it help the pancreas to function a little bit better in combination with, and this is the next part that we really need to talk about, in combination with appropriate lifestyle, diet, and all the other interventions, doing the work that you do, for example, rebalancing minerals, removing heavy metals. Like, I think that one of the things we tend to forget as a society is you can't just keep adding things to the system. Sometimes you have to think about, what do I need to remove? And that's your zone of genius, which is a whole lot.
Well, and the other thing too, it comes down, and you know this just as well as I do, it comes down to the basics. Like if you're not sleeping, you're eating crap, you're not exercising, and you start using peptides, your life's not going to turn upside down. You gotta change the foundations and get the right things in place, right? So yeah, I agree 100%. And I think, and I'll tell you too, the first time, this was again probably 4 or 5 years ago, when I started using bioregulators. I was using injectables, and one of them was, and you had recommended this to me, was Visugen, because I was having neuropathy issues with mold, right? And I will tell you that changed. In 20 days, I was a completely different person. And there was some other ones I was using, but I was like, that's the one for me. I was like, I always have that one in my stack because I need that. Yeah.
The Visugen, which is the blood vessel bioregulator, to those of you who prefer English, because the nomenclature of bioregulators is a complete but that blood vessel bioregulator underpins almost every protocol that you could write. And it's interesting you bring up blood vessel bioregulator with neuropathy, because I just had a guest on my podcast the other day, screaming that it's, neuropathy is not just about nerves, it's about blood flow. It's about getting circulation to the nerves.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And so, I definitely, that was the one that did it for me, 100% hands down. And I'm, and I think having the option, I mean, we'll go through this cycle of the injectables in, out, whatever. I mean, it's a hamster wheel of time, right? But the fact that the oral ones are now recognized or have been recognized, that's amazing, right? Just because, again, we know how powerful they can be for the different systems and glands and organs in the body, for sure.
For sure. And so the concession that there's a company that's bringing them in, you'll find them on my website, but Profound Health is actually going to be opening a warehouse in the US this fall.
Oh, amazing. Okay.
Which will be great for shipping, because right now they're shipping from the UK.
Yep.
But the concession they had to make to the FDA was that the FDA did not like the name. They don't like the word bioregulator, and they especially don't like the word peptide.
Right.
So they're referred to from now on as amino acid complexes.
Okay.
Which is fine, because that's essentially what they are.
Right.
And if that just can make them happy, then that's okay. Let's keep them happy.
Yep.
Well,
It's going to keep us happy because we're going to be 10 years younger. Just saying.
Who knows how far we can push it? But
Exactly.
what the bioregulators are really about, it's almost like restoring the tread on your tires.
Hmm.
Right. So you start off with your tires and they're kind of fuzzy and new. They've got the little hairy things on them and they've got nice deep treads.
Hmm.
And after a period of time, those treads start to wear down. Well, what if you could restore the tread?
Yep.
And so that's the way I look at the bioregulators. And sometimes for therapeutic purposes, you can. And what's really interesting in the literature is you'll see them very often paired with conventional therapy.
Yep. Hmm.
Right. Or they'll use there's an immune one called Villon, which you can actually get from Profound Health, not as a capsule, but as a spray.
Hmm.
It's called Nemorex. Villon is anti-tumor, but Villon is also very powerful at restoring function to the immune system after things like radiotherapy,
Hmm.
radiation for cancer,
Yep.
uh, which we know predisposes people to other cancers down the road. So what
Yep.
if we have something that we can use to apply to people that helps them to recover better from these
Wow.
treatments that,
Hmm.
sometimes you need radiation therapy. Sometimes you need to cut the tumor out.
Yep.
The mistake that people make sometimes in our space is they want to throw conventional medicine out the window. And it's like, well, wait, hold on a second. Actually, there's some good stuff in there. We just
Hmm.
have to know how to choose get access to the good stuff, but bolster it and supplement it and strengthen it with this other stuff. And now we get something that's really powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so you talked about your group. And so tell everybody about that because I think there's going to be people that are interested.
Oh, so that's so basically what happened is when I found the peptides in the first place, I started a Facebook group because I was like, okay, I really want to talk about this. I don't know that much about it, but I'm going to start a group and
Yep.
all these people will come in and oh my God, all these people came in and it got big. And that's why I started the podcast. Because then I was like, okay, so I'm kind of like running this group. I need to find people. How am I going to get people to talk to me who know more about it than I do, which is everybody at the time.
Yep.
And still, everybody probably knows a lot more than I do, but I've accrued some information. But basically, I started this Facebook group, and then the Facebook group, I don't know how many of you guys still spend time on Facebook, but I'm here to tell you it's crazy out there. And so it's over 25,000 people now. And it's like
Wow.
crazy whack-a-mole game of trying to keep the crazies out and keep people safe and the whole 9 yards. And so what I did is about a year and a half ago now, I
Hmm.
started another group, a membership community that is, I mean, I've kept the membership really reasonable, but
Hmm.
it's a paid community. And all of a sudden, as soon as you move into a paid community, everything changes.
Yeah.
Because the people who are willing to contribute money for the time that we put in,
Yep.
it's just different people, right? Like
Hmm.
you kind of, so anyway, and not to say that if somebody can't afford it, that you're not good people. Not at all. It's just that in the Facebook group, it's gotten so really difficult to have conversations. People are very angry these days.
Yes,
Um,
yes. Yeah.
so watched and listened to, right?
Right.
So Facebook made it very hard for us to have conversations. You weren't allowed to use certain words. Your post got removed.
Yep.
You with the group getting closed down. I mean,
Hmm.
we still deal with that all the time. We still have the group, but on the platform where my membership community is, there's none of that. Like it's fully
Yep.
private. Nobody knows what we're talking about other than us girls and
Hmm.
boys.
Hmm.
And I'm able to run programs. So I just launched a GLP-1 fat loss program. So
Nice.
for people who want to use GLP-1 peptides, which are,
Hmm.
for those of you who aren't aware, the Ozempics and Mounjaros, like
Hmm.
semaglutide, tirzepatide, because those are, again, extremely powerful peptides. But if you don't use them properly, you're going to turn into a bag of skin and bones with no
Yep.
muscle,
Yep.
which does not need to be the case if you
Hmm.
do it right. So that's
Yep.
our goal here, is to help to teach people and guide people in how to use them.
Hmm.
And then the other program we're running is the Year of Bioregulators. And then we also, of course, invite like stellar guests like Lisa Pitel-Killah to come in and do like talks and presentations and answer people's questions in the group. So it's really fun. It's a whole different universe in there. And it's kind of small, like there's 400 people, which
Yep.
don't particularly want it to get wildly, I could take a few more, but I do not aspire to another 25,000 person group. Like
Yes.
it's just,
It's a lot to manage. And I will tell you, I'm one of the first people in that group. I am in that group. I've been in there since almost day one. So yeah. So, so if anybody is in the group, they can tag me because I'm in there. And amazing. And you've got your course as well, right? Your beginner course on peptides. That's in there too.
yeah, I have a peptide crash course that's only available in that group
Hmm.
if you sign up for a
Yeah.
year. So you
Yep.
can sign up month to month. If you're one of those tire kicker people, you can
Yep.
sign up for a month to month membership, but you won't get access to the course.
Yep.
Once you are ready to kind of take the step and join for a year, there's a peptide crash course. And then I'm actually currently working on a bioregulator crash course as well. So
Amazing.
yeah.
Love it. Love it. Okay, so much information, Nat, always a wealth of information, and being very humble, saying that there's people that know more than you. I beg to differ, by the way. Oh my goodness. So natniddam.com, Nat recommends. The group is on a private platform, so we'll make sure we have the link in the bio for that if you want to sign up. And and yes.
It's on the website. So if you go to
Perfect.
natniddam.com at the top, well, actually, if you go to natniddam.com right now, there's a red bar at the top that invites you to sign up for my newsletter. So you can sign up for the newsletter. And then there's at the top, those little tabs, there's a tab that's called BSP Community.
Yep.
B like biohacking, S like superhuman, P like performance, because I couldn't get rid of it. So BSP Community, and that's where you'll find information and how to join the
Perfect.
society.
Excellent. Oh yeah, the secret society. Right. Next, it's going to be application only. It's going to be you're going to have to submit an application to get into the secret society. Oh, well, again, thanks, Nat, for being with us. For those of you watching on YouTube, make sure you give this episode a like and leave something in the comments for us. If you're listening on your favorite podcast host, make sure you follow and give us a like, and we will see you next time.
Thank you so much, Lisa. This was such a pleasure, as always.
Thanks for joining us today on the Human Optimization Podcast. Episode technical production is by Grace Sylvester and guest booking by Stu Tate. Want to learn more? Visit lisapitel-killah.com for incredible free resources to supercharge your journey to becoming the best version of you. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like and subscribe to the Human Optimization Podcast and follow me on social media at Lisa Pitel-Killah.